The gunshot echoed through the dusty streets of Silver Creek as Olivia Zimmerman pressed her back against the weathered wall of the saloon, her heart pounding so hard she feared it might burst from her chest. Her father's watch, the only possession she had left of him, felt heavy in her trembling hands. The year was 1875, and at 19 years old, she was now completely alone in a world that showed little mercy to women without protection. "There she is," a gruff voice shouted from down the street. Zimmerman's daughter. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The men who had killed her father were coming for her next. In the chaos that followed her father's murder, she'd overheard enough to know they believed she had information about a gold claim, information she didn't possess. They wouldn't believe her, and even if they did, they wouldn't leave a witness. She had to disappear. With shaking hands, she reached up and began gathering her long auburn hair. The decision formed in her mind with sudden clarity. In a town like this, a lone woman would be noticed, tracked, hunted, but another young man passing through? Hardly worth a second glance. Inside the abandoned storeroom behind the saloon, Olivia found what she needed. A pair of trousers that nearly fit her slender frame, a loose shirt, and a worn leather vest. With her father's hunting knife, she did the unthinkable, sawing through her hair until it barely reached her ears. The auburn locks fell to the floor like autumn leaves. She bound her chest tightly with strips of fabric torn from her petticoat, wincing at the discomfort but knowing her life depended on this disguise. The final touch was a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over her eyes. In the broken shard of mirror propped against the wall, she hardly recognized herself. Good. If she couldn't recognize Olivia Zimmerman, perhaps her hunters wouldn't either. "From now on, I'm Oliver," she whispered to her reflection. Oliver Smith. 2 days later, Oliver joined a cattle drive heading north as a cook's assistant. The trail boss had barely given her a second glance when she approached, deepening her voice and keeping her eyes down. Her slender build could pass for that of a young man who hadn't yet filled out, and the loose clothes concealed what her bindings couldn't. For weeks, she maintained her charade, learning to walk with a swagger, to spit, though she never quite mastered this, to curse convincingly, and most importantly, to keep to herself. The less attention she drew, the safer she remained. Each night, she would slip away from the campfire to tend to her most private needs, always claiming a need for modesty that earned her teasing but also a measure of space. The trail boss, a man named Hank, grew fond of the boy, with the quick hands and willingness to work. Olivia learned to cook over an open fire, to mend clothes, and to stay out of the way when the cowboys had been drinking. Her disguise became a second skin, and sometimes she would catch herself forgetting, just for a moment, that she wasn't actually Oliver. It was near the Montana Territory, 6 weeks into the drive, when everything changed. A sudden summer storm had scattered some of the cattle, and Olivia, trying to prove her worth, had volunteered to help round up the strays. The rain had soaked through her clothes. The wind had nearly taken her hat several times, and as darkness fell, she realized she had ridden too far from the main camp. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the rolling landscape in brief, harsh flashes. Her horse, spooked by a particularly loud thunderclap, reared suddenly. Olivia, caught off guard, tumbled from the saddle and landed hard on the wet ground. Pain shot through her ankle as she tried to stand, and she watched in dismay as her horse bolted into the darkness. "No, come back," she shouted, her voice rising in panic and forgetting to maintain her deeper tone. The rain fell harder, plastering her short hair to her head. She limped toward a cluster of trees, seeking any shelter from the downpour. The night grew colder, and Olivia huddled against the trunk of a large oak, pulling her knees to her chest in a futile attempt to preserve warmth. As the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, Olivia heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. Fear and hope warred within her. It could be someone from the cattle drive searching for her, or it could be the men who had killed her father, somehow tracking her all this way. A tall figure on horseback emerged from the morning mist. The man rode a magnificent chestnut stallion, his face shadowed by his hat, a long duster coat flapping behind him like wings. He pulled his horse to a stop several yards away, studying her with careful eyes. "You lost, boy," his deep voice carried across the distance between them. Olivia struggled to her feet, wincing as her injured ankle protested. Just separated from my drive, she answered, keeping her voice low. Horse threw me in the storm. The stranger dismounted with fluid grace that spoke of a lifetime in the saddle. As he approached, Olivia could see he was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps in his mid-20s, with broad shoulders and a face weathered by sun and wind. His eyes were a startling blue against his tanned skin. "You're from Hank Miller's Drive?" he asked, stopping a respectful distance away. Olivia nodded, relief washing through her. This man knew Hank. "I'm Finn Tucker," he said, extending a hand. "I range north of here. Saw the drive pass through yesterday." She took his hand, hoping her own wasn't too soft to pass for a working man's. "Oliver Smith," she replied, the line now coming easily to her lips. Finn's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked her over. "You're hurt," he observed, glancing at how she favored her right foot. "It's nothing," Olivia protested, but when she tried to take a step forward, her ankle gave way beneath her. Finn moved with surprising speed, catching her before she hit the ground. The sudden contact sent a jolt through Olivia that had nothing to do with pain. His arms were strong, secure, and for a wild moment, she wanted nothing more than to collapse against his chest and confess everything. Instead, she pulled away, stumbling slightly as she tried to regain her balance. "That's not nothing," Finn said. "Let me help you up on my horse. I'll take you back to your camp." "I can walk," Olivia insisted stubbornly. Finn's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "It's 5 miles at least. You planning to hop the whole way?" Before she could protest further, he had swept her up and deposited her on his horse. The casual display of strength left her momentarily speechless. He swung up behind her, his chest warm against her back as he reached around her for the reins. "Hold on," he instructed, and she gripped the saddle horn, acutely aware of his proximity. They rode in silence for a time, the rhythm of the horse's gait lulling Olivia despite her discomfort. The storm had cleared, leaving the landscape fresh and gleaming in the morning light. Eventually, Finn spoke. "How long you been working cattle, Smith?" Olivia hesitated. "Not long," she admitted. "Just joined up with Hank a few weeks back." "Thought as much," Finn said. "Your hands aren't calloused enough for someone who's been at it long." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She curled her fingers into fists, cursing herself for not thinking of that detail. "I was a store clerk before," she improvised quickly. "In Colorado. Decided I needed a change." "That's so." Finn's voice held a note of skepticism that made her stomach tighten. "And what brings a store clerk out to Montana territory?" "Just looking for something different," she said lamely. Finn fell silent again, but Olivia could feel his thoughtful gaze on the back of her neck. They crested a small hill, and in the valley below, she could see the cattle drive spread out, the chuck wagon a welcome sight. As they approached the camp, several cowboys noticed their arrival, including Hank, who came striding toward them with relief evident on his weathered face. "There you are, boy. We were about to send out a search party," Hank called, then noticed Finn. "Tucker, didn't expect to see you out this way." Finn helped Olivia down from the horse. "Found your stray hand out by Oak Creek." Took a fall from his horse. Hank clapped Olivia on the shoulder, nearly knocking her off her injured foot. "You had us worried, Smith. But you're lucky Tucker found you. He knows this territory better than anyone." Olivia managed a tight smile. "Thank you for the assistance, Mr. Tucker." Finn's blue eyes met hers directly. "Just Finn will do." And it was no trouble. Something in his gaze made her look away quickly. Did he suspect? Had she given herself away somehow? "The boy needs to stay off that ankle for a few days," Finn told Hank. "Mind if I stick around to help make up the difference? I'm headed north anyway." Hank beamed. "Would be much obliged, Tucker. Always room for another good hand." Olivia's heart sank. The last thing she needed was this observant stranger watching her every move. But she could hardly protest without drawing attention to herself. For the next 3 days, Olivia was confined to the chuck wagon, helping the cook while her ankle healed. From this vantage point, she couldn't help but watch Finn Tucker as he worked with the cattle. He moved with confident ease, clearly at home in the saddle, respected by the other men. Occasionally, she would catch him looking her way, his expression unreadable. On the 4th evening, as the camp settled for the night, Finn approached the fire where Olivia sat darning socks, a skill her father had insisted she learn after her mother's death years before. "How's the ankle?" he asked, lowering himself to sit beside her. "Better," she replied, keeping her eyes on her work. I should be able to ride tomorrow. Finn nodded, watching the flames. You're good with a needle, he observed casually. Most cowboys I know make a mess of mending. Olivia's fingers stilled momentarily before resuming their rhythm. My father taught me. Said a man should be self-sufficient. Wise man, Finn commented. He fell silent for a long moment before asking, Why are you running, Oliver? The question caught her completely off guard. She jabbed the needle into her thumb and bit back a very unfeminine yelp of pain. I'm not running from anything, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Finn's blue eyes reflected the firelight as he turned to look at her directly. Everyone out here is running from something. Or towards something. Sometimes both. Olivia swallowed hard. Just looking for work, like anyone else. Finn didn't sound convinced. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, offering it to her. Found this caught in your hair when I helped you onto my horse the other day. In his palm lay a delicate silver hairpin with a tiny pearl at the end, one she had used to secure her long hair before cutting it off. One she thought she had discarded with all other evidence of Olivia Zimmerman. Her blood ran cold. She stared at the hairpin, unable to speak. Not many cowboys I know carry ladies' hairpins, Finn said quietly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. Your secret's safe with me, but I reckon you might want to be more careful. Olivia looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of threat or malice, but found only genuine concern. Without another word, he pressed the hairpin into her hand, closed her fingers around it, and stood. Get some rest, he said, then walked away, leaving her trembling by the fire. Sleep eluded Olivia that night. Finn Tucker knew she wasn't who she claimed to be. He might not know the full truth, but he knew enough to destroy her carefully constructed disguise with a single word to Hank or the others. Yet he had said her secret was safe with him. Could she trust him? She had trusted no one since her father's death. The next morning, Finn acted as though nothing had changed, treating her with the same casual respect he showed the other hands. As she saddled her replacement horse, testing her weight on her healing ankle, he approached with a canteen. Drink plenty today, he advised. It's going to be hot out there. Olivia accepted the canteen with a wary nod. Thank you. I'm riding the north flank today, he continued. You might want to join me. Less dust than riding drag. She understood the invitation for what it was, a chance to talk away from curious ears. With reluctance, she agreed. Out on the range, with the main body of the drive a comfortable distance away, Finn finally broke the silence between them. I'm not going to ask your real name, he said, or why you're pretending to be a boy. But if you're in trouble, I might be able to help. Olivia studied him from beneath the brim of her hat. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Finn shrugged. My sister had to disguise herself once, during the war. Confederate soldiers were looking for her after she helped some Union prisoners escape. A good man helped her when she needed it most. His eyes met hers. Figured I'd do the same if I ever got the chance. The simple explanation disarmed her. For the first time in months, Olivia felt the overwhelming urge to tell someone the truth, to share the burden she'd been carrying alone. They killed my father, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Men who thought he had information about a gold claim. They would have killed me too, if they'd found me. Finn's expression darkened. When, 2 months ago, in a small town called Silver Creek, back in Colorado territory. And you've been running ever since, he said. It wasn't a question. Olivia nodded. They think I know something about the claim. I don't. But they won't believe that. These men, would you recognize them again? Yes, she said without hesitation. I'll never forget their faces. Finn was quiet for a long moment, his gaze scanning the horizon as though looking for threats. The drive ends at Fort Benton in 3 weeks, he said finally. I have a ranch about a day's ride from there. You'd be safe there while you figure out your next move. The offer stunned her. Why would you do that for a stranger? His blue eyes softened slightly. Because no one should have to run forever. Before she could respond, a shout from the drive caught their attention. One of the steers had broken away, and several cowboys were giving chase. The conversation was over for now, but Finn's offer lingered in Olivia's mind throughout the day. That night, as she lay beneath the stars, Olivia considered her options. She could continue with the drive and then find another job, another place to hide. Or she could accept Finn's offer of sanctuary, at least temporarily. The idea was tempting, to sleep under a roof again, to wash properly, to not fear discovery at every moment. But could she trust him completely? He knew her secret already. What more did she have to lose? Her decision was made for her 3 days later when the drive stopped in a small settlement to resupply. Olivia was helping the cook load provisions into the wagon when she spotted them, two of the men who had been there the night her father was murdered, riding into town. Her blood turned to ice. She ducked behind the wagon, her heart hammering in her chest. How had they found her? Had they been tracking the drive? Or was it terrible coincidence? "Smith," the cook called. "Grab those sacks of flour, will you?" Olivia couldn't move. Through the spaces between the wagon wheels, she could see the men dismounting outside the saloon. If they saw her, a shadow fell over her, and she nearly cried out in alarm until she realized it was Finn. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. "The men who killed my father," she whispered. "Two of them just rode into town." Finn's expression hardened. Without a word, he removed his bandana and handed it to her. "Wrap this around the lower half of your face. Say you've got a toothache if anyone asks." He glanced toward the saloon. "Which ones?" "The tall one with the black hat and the shorter one with the red beard," she said, wrapping the bandana around her face with trembling hands. Finn nodded once. "Get back to camp. Now, stay with Hank." "What are you going to do?" she asked, fear evident in her voice despite her attempt to control it. "Just going to see what they're after," he replied. "Go. I'll be right behind you." Olivia hesitated only briefly before hurrying back toward the camp, keeping her head down and the bandana secure around her face. She found Hank checking the chuck wagon's wheel. "Hank," she said, her voice muffled by the bandana. "Finn sent me to tell you we might have trouble in town." The trail boss straightened immediately. "What kind of trouble?" "Men looking for someone," she said vaguely. "Finn's keeping an eye on them." Hank's weathered face creased with concern. "Damn. Last thing we need is trouble before we reach Fort Benton." He looked at her closely. "You all right, boy? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just a toothache," she lied, pointing to the bandana. Hank nodded sympathetically. "Get some willow bark from the cook. Might help with the pain." Olivia spent the next hour in agony, not from any physical pain, but from worry about what was happening in town. Had the men recognized Finn as being associated with the drive? Were they asking questions about a young man, matching her description? The sun was beginning to set when Finn finally returned to camp. His knuckles were scraped, and there was a darkening bruise on his jaw, but he seemed otherwise unharmed. He nodded briefly at Olivia before speaking to Hank. "We should move out at first light," he said. "There's some unsavory types in town asking questions about the drive." Hank frowned. "Rustlers? Maybe," Finn replied. "Better not to find out. I've got the supplies we need. No reason to linger." The trail boss agreed, giving orders to prepare for an early departure. Only when the camp was busy with activity did Finn approach Olivia, who was still wearing the bandana. "They're looking for a woman," he said quietly. "Not a boy. They don't know about your disguise." Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. "They're still looking for me," she whispered. "Yes," Finn confirmed. "But they're heading south tomorrow." Said something about checking mining camps near Denver. "They're going the wrong way," Olivia realized. "For now," Finn agreed. "But they won't give up. Men like that never do." He glanced around to ensure no one was within earshot. "My offer stands. The ranch would be safer than continuing to drift." Olivia studied his bruised knuckles. "Did you fight them?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Let's just say I joined them for a drink and got them talking." The fight came later, with different men entirely. "Thank you," she said, the words inadequate for what he had done. Finn's blue eyes held hers for a moment. "You don't have to thank me. Just be ready to ride at dawn." The drive continued northward, pushing harder than before. Olivia maintained her disguise with renewed vigilance, though she noted that Finn now often positioned himself between her and strangers they encountered on the trail. His protective presence was both comforting and confusing. She had been alone for so long that having someone watch out for her felt foreign. As they drew closer to Fort Benton, Olivia made her decision. When the drive ended, she would accept Finn's offer of sanctuary. She had no better options, and something about him, his quiet confidence, his straightforward manner, made her trust him despite her better judgment. Fort Benton was a bustling river port on the Missouri, the farthest point upstream that steamboats could navigate. The cattle drive's arrival was met with the usual excitement, buyers inspecting the herd, saloons preparing for an influx of cowboys with money to spend, and ladies of questionable virtue making themselves visible along the main street. Hank paid out the wages to his hands, including Oliver Smith, with a hearty handshake and an offer of future work. Olivia thanked him sincerely, knowing she would likely never see him again. As the other cowboys headed for the saloons, Finn found her packing her meager belongings. "Ready to go?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "If your offer still stands." "It does," he assured her. "We'll stay here tonight and head out at first light. I have a room at the hotel already." Alarm must have shown on her face, because he quickly added, "For you. I'll sleep in the stable with the horses." They walked through the busy streets, Olivia still in her disguise, Finn carrying both their saddlebags. At the hotel, he spoke briefly to the clerk before handing Olivia a key. "Room 4 upstairs," he said. "There's a bath already ordered. I'll bring you something to eat later." Alone in the simple but clean hotel room, Olivia stared at the steaming bath with something approaching reverence. It had been months since she'd had a proper bath. Locking the door securely, she slowly removed the layers of her disguise, the binding around her chest, the boy's clothes, the hat that had become both her shield and her prison. The hot water was blissful against her skin. She scrubbed away weeks of trailed dust and sweat, watching the water darken. Her hair, though short, felt clean for the first time in memory as she washed it thoroughly. For a brief, indulgent moment, she allowed herself to simply be Olivia again, not the fabricated Oliver. A knock at the door startled her from her reverie. "Smith? It's Finn. I've brought food." "Just a moment," she called, her voice higher than it had been in months. She dried quickly and dressed in her boy's clothes again, securing her chest binding with practiced movements. When she opened the door, Finn stood with a tray of food and a bundle under his arm. "Thought you might want these," he said, placing the tray on the small table and offering her the bundle. "They belong to my sister. Should be close to your size." Olivia unwrapped the bundle to find a simple blue dress, modest but unmistakably feminine, along with appropriate undergarments. "How did you?" she began, touching the fabric with wonder. "Stopped by the general store while you were settling in," Finn explained. "Figured you might be tired of those clothes." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. This small kindness, after so many months of hardship, nearly undid her. "Thank you," she managed. Finn shifted uncomfortably under her emotional gaze. "It's nothing. Eat while it's hot. I'll come for you at dawn." He turned to leave, but Olivia stopped him with a hand on his arm. "My name is Olivia," she said softly. "Olivia Zimmerman." Finn's expression softened. "It's nice to finally meet you, Olivia Zimmerman." With that, he left her to her meal and her thoughts. The journey to Finn's ranch took most of the following day. They rode side by side through rolling grasslands dotted with stands of pine and aspen. Olivia remained in her boy's clothes for the journey, the dress safely packed away in her saddlebag, but she had left off the binding and wore her hat tilted back, allowing more of her face to show. "It's beautiful country," she commented as they crested a rise overlooking a verdant valley. A creek wound through the center, and in the distance, she could make out a cabin and several outbuildings nestled against a backdrop of trees. "That's it," Finn said, nodding toward the homestead. "Not much, but it's home." As they approached, Olivia could see the care that had gone into the place. The cabin was sturdy and well-maintained, with a covered porch and glass windows. A corral held several horses, and a small herd of cattle grazed in a nearby meadow. Smoke rose from the chimney. "I thought you lived alone," Olivia said, suddenly apprehensive. "My foreman, Joe, and his wife, Martha, look after the place when I'm gone," Finn explained. "Good people. They live in a smaller cabin behind the main house." As if on cue, an older man emerged from one of the outbuildings, shading his eyes against the setting sun. He waved when he spotted them. "That's Joe," Finn said. "He won't ask questions. Neither will Martha." Olivia's heart was pounding as they dismounted in front of the cabin. What was she doing here, with this man she barely knew, in this remote place? Joe approached, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Welcome back, boss," he greeted Finn, then turned curious eyes to Olivia. "And welcome to the Double T, young lady." Olivia froze. He had called her young lady, without hesitation, seeing through her disguise instantly. Finn placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Joe, this is Olivia Zimmerman. She'll be staying with us for a while." Joe tipped his hat. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Zimmerman. Martha's got supper nearly ready. She'll be mighty happy to have another woman around the place." With that simple acceptance, Olivia was welcomed into Finn Tucker's world. Martha, a plump, cheerful woman with silver-streaked dark hair, took one look at Olivia and immediately set about fattening her up, declaring her thin as a rail. The simple cabin was comfortable and clean, with 2 bedrooms, a main living area with a stone fireplace, and a kitchen where Martha reigned supreme. That first night, after changing into the blue dress Finn had given her, Olivia joined the 3 of them for a hearty meal. The conversation flowed easily, with no one asking why she had arrived dressed as a boy or what had brought her to the Double T. It was as if they had all silently agreed that her past was her own business. After supper, Joe and Martha retired to their own cabin, leaving Olivia alone with Finn for the first time since their arrival. "You'll take my room," he said, gesturing toward one of the bedroom doors. "I'll sleep out here by the fire." "I can't take your bed," Olivia protested. "You've done enough already." Finn's expression was resolute. "It's no hardship. I've slept under the stars for weeks on end. A bedroll by the fire is luxury by comparison." Too tired to argue further, Olivia acquiesced. "Thank you, Finn, for everything." He nodded, his blue eyes reflecting the firelight. "Get some rest, Olivia. You're safe here." In the days that followed, Olivia gradually adjusted to life at the Double T. She helped Martha with household tasks, learning the rhythms of ranch life. The older woman became a friend and confidant, never prying, but always ready to listen if Olivia chose to share. Finn was often out working with the cattle or tending to ranch business, but each evening they would sit together by the fire, talking about everything and nothing. She learned that he had fought for the Union in the war, that his parents had died of fever when he was 16, that he and his sister Rachel had made their way west afterward. Rachel was now married to a doctor in Helena. In turn, Olivia told him about her life before her father's murder, growing up the daughter of a widowed shopkeeper, learning to keep books and serve customers, the simple pleasures of her former life. She spoke of her father's kindness, his love of reading, his dreams of someday striking it rich in the gold fields. He finally thought he had a lead on a promising claim, she explained one evening, a month into her stay. He was so excited, said it would change everything for us. Finn listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face. "And that's what those men were after? The location of this claim?" Olivia nodded. "They came to the store after closing. I was in the back room when I heard them demanding information. My father refused to tell them anything." Her voice caught. "They shot him. I saw it happen through a crack in the door." "I'm sorry," Finn said softly, reaching across to take her hand. "I ran," she continued, the guilt of that decision still fresh. "I should have done something, but I just ran, hid in the church cellar until morning. When I finally ventured out, I overheard them asking about me in town. They thought I knew about the claim." She gave a bitter laugh. "I didn't. My father never told me where it was." "You did the right thing," Finn assured her. "You survived. That's what matters." His hand was warm around hers, strong and calloused from years of hard work. The contact sent a now familiar flutter through her chest. Over the past weeks, she had become increasingly aware of Finn Tucker as more than just her protector. His smile that transformed his serious face, the way his shirt stretched across his broad shoulders as he chopped wood, the gentle way he spoke to the horses. These observations both thrilled and terrified her. "Do you think they're still looking for me?" she asked, reluctantly withdrawing her hand from his. Finn considered the question. Men like that don't give up easily when they think there's gold at stake. But they have no way of knowing where you are now. For all they know, you could be in California or back east. The answer should have reassured her, but instead, it only highlighted the temporary nature of her situation. Eventually, she would have to leave the safety of the Double T and make her own way in the world. As summer turned to autumn, Olivia found herself increasingly at home on the ranch. Her hair had grown out enough that it now curled softly around her face, too short for fashion, but unmistakably feminine. The constant work and good food had restored her health, adding curves to her previously thin frame. She began riding out with Finn occasionally, learning about the cattle operation, enjoying the breathtaking beauty of the Montana landscape. On one such ride in late September, they stopped to rest by a mountain stream, the aspens around them turning brilliant gold in the crisp air. "I need to go into Helena next week," Finn said as they sat on a fallen log, sharing a canteen. "Would you like to come along? Rachel has been asking to meet you." Olivia hesitated. She hadn't left the safety of the ranch since her arrival. "Is it safe?" "Helena's a big enough town that strangers don't draw much notice," Finn assured her. "And those men have no reason to be that far north." The idea of seeing a real town again, of wearing a proper dress, and perhaps even visiting a shop or two, was tempting. "I'd like that," she decided. Finn smiled, the expression transforming his face. "Good. Rachel will be pleased." As they prepared to mount up again, Finn suddenly went still, his head tilted as though listening. "Get behind me," he said quietly, his hand moving to the revolver at his hip. Olivia's heart leapt into her throat as she stepped behind him. "What is it?" "Riders coming," he murmured. "Stay quiet." Through the trees, Olivia could now hear what Finn had detected, the sound of several horses approaching. She pressed closer to Finn's back, her fingers clutching the fabric of his coat. 3 riders emerged into the clearing. Olivia's blood turned to ice as she recognized the man in front, tall, with a black hat and cold eyes. One of her father's killers. "Afternoon," the man called, his gaze taking in Finn's protective stance and the horses grazing nearby. "Hope we're not interrupting. Just taking a break before heading home," Finn replied, his voice casual though Olivia could feel the tension in his body. "You folks lost?" "Looking for grazing rights," the man said. "Heard there might be some available in these parts." "Not on my land," Finn stated firmly. "But there's open range farther north." The man's eyes shifted to Olivia, who was doing her best to keep her face hidden behind Finn. "Your wife shy, mister?" "My intended," Finn corrected smoothly. "And yes, she's not used to strangers." The man seemed to lose interest, turning his attention back to Finn. "Any other ranchers in the area we should talk to?" Finn gave them directions to a property several miles away, his tone helpful, but with an underlying edge that suggested they should be on their way. The men tipped their hats and rode off, but not before the leader gave Olivia one last, lingering look. When they were well out of earshot, Olivia sagged against Finn's back, her legs suddenly too weak to support her. "That was him," she whispered. "The one who shot my father." Finn turned to face her, his hands gripping her shoulders. "Are you certain?" She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I'll never forget his face." "We need to get back to the ranch," Finn said urgently. "If he's here, it's not by coincidence." They rode hard back to the Double T, Finn's expression grim. As soon as they arrived, he gave instructions to Joe to double the watch on the herd and to keep Martha and Olivia inside the cabin. "They're looking for cattle, not me," Olivia protested as Finn checked his rifle. "They didn't recognize me." "Maybe," Finn conceded. "But I don't trust coincidence. And neither should you." That night, as Martha prepared supper, Finn and Joe discussed strategy in low voices by the fire. Olivia moved between the kitchen and the main room, catching bits of their conversation, references to neighboring ranchers, the possibility of bringing in additional hands, concerns about the approaching winter. As she returned to the kitchen, she overheard Finn say, "If anything happens to me, get her to Rachel and Helena." The words stopped her cold. Was he expecting trouble? Was he putting himself in danger because of her? Later, when Joe and Martha had gone to their cabin and Finn was preparing his bedroll by the fire, Olivia confronted him. "I heard what you said to Joe," she began, "about sending me to your sister." Finn straightened, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. "Just being cautious." "You think they'll come back?" she said. "It wasn't a question." "I think we need to be prepared if they do," he replied. Olivia stepped closer to him, her heart pounding. "I won't be responsible for putting you in danger." "I should leave." "And go where?" Finn challenged. "Back to disguising yourself as a boy, running from town to town." "If I have to," she insisted. Finn's hands came up to grasp her upper arms, his blue eyes intense. "No, I won't let you do that again." "It's not your decision to make," Olivia argued, even as his touch sent warmth cascading through her. "Olivia," he said, his voice softening, "I promise to protect you. I intend to keep that promise." The sincerity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Why?" she whispered. Why do you care what happens to me? Finn's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. Because in these past months, you've become the most important person in my life, he admitted. And I can't bear the thought of you in danger. The confession hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Olivia's heart swelled with emotions she had been trying to ignore: affection, admiration, and something deeper that frightened and thrilled her in equal measure. Finn, she began, not sure what she wanted to say, only knowing that something fundamental had shifted between them. Before she could continue, a sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Finn released her immediately, his hand moving to his gun as he approached the door cautiously. "Who's there?" he called. "It's Sam Jenkins from the Circle J," a voice responded. "Got news you need to hear, Tucker." Finn opened the door to reveal a rancher from a neighboring property, his expression grave. "Those men who were asking about grazing rights. They've been asking questions all over the territory about a young woman traveling alone or disguised as a boy, offering a reward for information." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. They hadn't given up. They were still hunting her. Finn's jaw tightened. "Appreciate the warning, Sam. Any idea where they're staying?" "Camped by Eagle Creek last I heard," Sam replied. "3 of them, armed to the teeth." After Sam departed with a promise to spread the word among other ranchers to keep watch, Finn turned to Olivia, his expression resolute. "Pack what you need," he instructed. "We're leaving for Helena tonight." "Tonight," Olivia echoed. "But it's already dark, and the road is less dangerous than staying here." Finn finished for her. "If they connect you to this ranch, they'll come. And I won't risk your safety." Within the hour, they were mounted and ready, with Joe and Martha standing on the porch to see them off. Martha had packed food for the journey and pressed a small bundle into Olivia's hands. "A few things you might need," the older woman explained, embracing Olivia tightly. "Be safe, child." Joe clasped Finn's arm. "We'll keep an eye on things here. Take care of her." The night was clear and cold, stars blazing overhead as they rode out. Finn set a brisk pace, following trails that would keep them away from the main road. Olivia, wrapped in a heavy coat against the autumn chill, kept close behind him, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. They rode through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses. As dawn broke over the eastern mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Finn led them to a small line shack tucked into a grove of pines. "We'll rest here for a few hours," he said, helping Olivia dismount. Her legs were stiff from the long ride, and she stumbled slightly as her feet touched the ground. Finn's arm went around her waist to steady her, the contact sending a jolt of awareness through her despite her exhaustion. The shack was simple: a single room with a small stove, a rough table, and a narrow bed. Finn busied himself building a fire in the stove while Olivia unpacked some of the food Martha had prepared. "I'm sorry," she said softly as they sat at the table, sharing a meal of cold biscuits and jerky, "for bringing this trouble to your door." Finn's blue eyes met hers across the small space. "You have nothing to apologize for, Olivia. You've built a good life at the Double T," she continued, "and now you've had to leave it because of me. The ranch will be there when we return," he said simply. "You're what matters now." The quiet certainty in his voice made her heart skip. "What if they follow us to Helena? Rachel's husband is well respected in the city. They have connections with the territorial officials. You'll be safer there while we figure out our next steps." Olivia picked at her food, a question burning in her mind. "And after? What happens then?" Finn was silent for a long moment. "That depends," he finally said, "on what you want." "What I want," she repeated, confused. He met her gaze directly. "Whether you want to return to the Double T with me, whether you want to stay." The implication behind his words was clear. He wasn't just offering protection anymore. He was offering a future. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. Finn reached across the table to take her hand. "Olivia Zimmerman, you could never be a burden to me. These past months, watching you rebuild your life, seeing your strength and courage, I've come to care for you. Deeply." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I've come to care for you too," she admitted. "But I'm afraid. Afraid of what might happen if those men find me. Afraid of losing someone else I love." The word slipped out before she could stop it. Love. Was that what this feeling was? This sense of belonging, of rightness when she was with him? Finn's eyes softened, and he rose from his seat, coming around the table to kneel beside her chair. I'm not easy to get rid of, he said, a small smile playing at his lips. And I promise you, Olivia, I will not let those men hurt you. Ever. He reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. May I? He asked softly. Olivia nodded, her heart pounding as Finn leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a tender kiss. It was a promise, a declaration, and a beginning all at once. When they parted, she found herself smiling despite the danger that had driven them from his home. We should rest, Finn said reluctantly. We have another long ride ahead of us. Olivia took the bed at Finn's insistence, while he stretched out on his bedroll near the stove. Despite her exhaustion, sleep came fitfully, her dreams filled with pursuing riders and the memory of Finn's kiss. She woke to the sound of Finn moving quietly around the shack, preparing coffee on the small stove. The light through the single window suggested it was late afternoon. How long did I sleep? She asked, sitting up and trying to smooth her rumpled clothing. About 6 hours, Finn replied, pouring coffee into a tin cup and bringing it to her. We'll leave at dusk. Should reach Helena by morning if we push hard. They set out as the sun was setting, the mountains to the west glowing with golden light. The trail Finn chose wound through forests and across high meadows, avoiding the main roads where they might be spotted. The night grew colder as they climbed higher, and Olivia was grateful for the warm coat Martha had insisted she take. Near midnight, as they paused to rest the horses by a small stream, Finn suddenly went rigid, his hand going to his gun. What is it? Olivia whispered, fear clutching at her throat. Riders, he murmured, coming up the trail behind us. Olivia strained her ears and caught the faint sound of hoofbeats. Could it be travelers? Or a patrol? Possibly, Finn conceded. But I don't want to take chances. He looked around quickly, assessing their options. There's a stand of trees up ahead. We'll wait there, see who it is. They moved swiftly to the cover of the pines, dismounting and leading their horses deep enough into the trees to be hidden from the trail. Finn positioned Olivia behind him, his rifle ready but not raised. The riders came into view minutes later, 3 men moving at a steady pace, scanning the trail ahead. Even in the moonlight, Olivia recognized them immediately, the 3 men who had killed her father. The man in the black hat was in the lead, his face set in grim determination. They're tracking us, Finn whispered, confirming her worst fears. How? She breathed. Must have picked up our trail from the ranch, he replied. They're persistent, I'll give them that. As the men drew closer, their conversation became audible. Trail's fresh, the man with the red beard was saying. Can't be more than an hour ahead of us. If it's even them, another responded. Could be anyone heading to Helena. It's them, the leader stated with certainty. That rancher was hiding something, and his intended was mighty careful to keep her face hidden. Olivia's heart pounded so loudly she was certain they would hear it. Finn's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing reassuringly. The men stopped almost directly in front of their hiding place, discussing which way to proceed. Olivia held her breath, willing them to move on. Finally, the leader made a decision. We'll continue to Helena. If they're not on this trail, that's where they're headed anyway. The girl has nowhere else to go. They rode on, the sound of their horses fading into the night. Finn waited a full 10 minutes before speaking. We can't take the main trail to Helena now, he said, his voice tight with anger. We'll have to go through the high pass. It's longer, but they won't expect it. The high pass route was arduous, a narrow trail that wound through rocky terrain and dense forest. By dawn, they had reached the summit, and Helena lay spread out in the valley below, the buildings small as toys from their vantage point. We made it, Olivia said, relief evident in her voice. Finn nodded, though his expression remained vigilant. We're not safe yet. Those men could already be in the city. They descended carefully, Finn choosing a path that would bring them to the eastern edge of Helena rather than the main road. By mid-morning, they had reached the outskirts of the city, blending in with the traffic of wagons and riders entering for the day's business. Rachel Tucker Bradley's home was a handsome 2-story structure on a quiet street lined with cottonwood trees. Finn's sister, a slender woman with the same striking blue eyes as her brother, welcomed them with concern and immediate hospitality. Finn told me some of your situation in his letters, she explained to Olivia as she showed her to a guest room. You poor dear. What a terrible ordeal you've been through. Olivia, overwhelmed by the warmth of Rachel's welcome and the luxury of a real bed after their journey, could only express her gratitude. "My husband Thomas will be home this evening," Rachel continued. "He has considerable influence in the city. Between him and Finn, we'll figure out how to deal with these horrible men." After a bath and a change into clean clothes borrowed from Rachel, Olivia felt almost human again. She found Finn and his sister in the parlor, deep in conversation that stopped abruptly when she entered. "You look much better," Finn said, his eyes warming as he took in her appearance. "I feel better," she admitted. "Thank you both for taking me in like this." "Family helps family," Rachel said simply, with a knowing glance between Olivia and her brother that brought a flush to Olivia's cheeks. That evening, Thomas Bradley, a distinguished-looking man with kind eyes and a firm handshake, listened carefully to their story. As the territorial prosecutor, he took particular interest in the details of Jacob Zimmerman's murder. "These men have committed murder and are now pursuing a witness across territorial lines," he said gravely. "That gives us jurisdiction to act. I'll contact the marshal's office first thing tomorrow." Olivia's hope rose for the first time in months. "Do you think they can be caught?" "If they're in Helena, we'll find them," Thomas assured her. "The marshal owes me a few favors." That night, as the household settled into sleep, Olivia found herself unable to rest despite her exhaustion. The knowledge that her father's killers were so close, possibly even in the same city, kept her mind racing with fear and memories. She slipped downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water, startled to find Finn already there, staring out the window into the darkened garden. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked softly. He turned at the sound of her voice, his expression softening. "Too much on my mind." Olivia moved to stand beside him, looking out at the shadows of trees and flowers in the moonlight. "I keep thinking about what happens next. If they catch those men, what then?" Finn's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her own. "What do you want to happen next, Olivia?" She looked up at him, at the face that had become so dear to her. "I want to feel safe again. I want to stop running." She took a deep breath. "I want to go home with you." The smile that spread across Finn's face was like the sunrise. "That's what I want too," he admitted. "I want to build a life with you, Olivia Zimmerman. If you'll have me." "I will," she whispered, rising on tiptoe to press her lips to his. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as the kiss deepened. In that moment, despite the danger still lurking, Olivia felt truly safe for the first time since her father's death. The next morning brought action. Thomas returned from the marshal's office with news the three men had indeed been spotted in Helena, asking questions at various establishments about a young woman traveling with a rancher. "The marshal has deputies watching the saloons and hotels," Thomas explained. "If they're still in the city, we'll find them." They didn't have to wait long. By afternoon, word came that the men had been located at a saloon on the edge of town. The marshal was organizing a party to apprehend them. "I'm going with them," Finn declared, checking his gun. "No," Olivia protested, fear clutching at her heart. "Let the marshal handle it. These men are killers." Finn's expression was resolute. "I need to see this through, Olivia. For you. For your father." She knew there was no dissuading him. "Promise me you'll be careful," she pleaded. "I promise," he said, kissing her briefly before joining Thomas and heading for the door. The hours that followed were the longest of Olivia's life. She paced Rachel's parlor, unable to sit still, jumping at every sound from the street. Rachel tried to distract her with conversation, but Olivia's thoughts were with Finn, imagining every terrible possibility. It was nearly sunset when they heard horses approaching. Rachel hurried to the window. "It's them," she confirmed. "Thomas and Finn." Olivia rushed to the door, her heart in her throat. Finn dismounted wearily, but his face broke into a smile when he saw her waiting. Without hesitation, she flew into his arms. "It's over," he told her, holding her tight. "They've been arrested. The marshal found evidence linking them to other crimes as well. They won't be free for a very long time, if ever." Relief washed over her in a wave so powerful her knees nearly buckled. "Truly?" she whispered against his chest. "It's really over?" Finn drew back to look into her eyes. "Truly. You don't have to run anymore, Olivia. You don't have to hide." For the first time since that terrible night in Silver Creek, Olivia felt the weight of fear lift from her shoulders. She was free. Free to live, to love, to build a future. That night, as they celebrated with Rachel and Thomas over a fine dinner, Finn surprised her by dropping to one knee beside her chair. "Olivia Zimmerman," he said, his blue eyes shining with love. "I promised to protect you the first day I found you. Now I want to make that promise for a lifetime. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled Olivia's eyes as she nodded. "Yes," she managed through the emotion clogging her throat. "Yes, I will." 2 weeks later, they were married in a simple ceremony in Rachel's garden. Olivia wore a cream-colored dress that Rachel had helped her choose, her short hair adorned with tiny wildflowers. Finn, in a new suit, looked at her as though she were the most precious thing in the world as they spoke their vows. Joe and Martha had made the journey from the Double T to witness the union, Martha dabbing at her eyes throughout the ceremony, Joe beaming with approval. As Finn slipped a simple gold band onto her finger, Olivia marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment, from terror and disguise to love and belonging. The road had been dangerous, but it had led her home. In the spring of 1876, Finn and Olivia Tucker welcomed their first child, a daughter they named Grace. Standing on the porch of their home at the Double T, watching Finn rock their infant daughter as the sun set over the Montana mountains, Olivia gave thanks for the twist of fate that had brought her to this man. "What are you thinking about?" Finn asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Olivia smiled, stepping forward to join her family. "I was thinking about how sometimes we have to lose everything to find what we're truly meant to have." Finn leaned down to kiss her softly. "I'll always be grateful I found you that morning after the storm. My beautiful wife, who once wore a boy's hat. And I'll always be grateful you saw through my disguise," Olivia replied, resting her head against his shoulder as they gazed out at the land that was now truly their home. "And that you promised to protect me." "Always," Finn whispered, his arm tightening around her as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky. "Always."